This is a response to a video by Tooltime called Human Privilege, a Reply, which is a response to a video by someone called, just check, the Viking Ninja, who is in turn responding to your video there, Tooltime, called Human Privilege. And he's bringing up I want to start actually by distancing myself from Viking Ninja. He's not, none of his views I would share apart from this one. And he brings up in a sense it's an irrelevant argument. He says, why aren't you, if you're talking about human privilege or white privilege and male privilege, why aren't you talking about human privilege as opposed to animal privilege? And of course, in a sense, it's an irrelevant argument, which makes me wonder why you responded to it. But since you have, I think we should look at it. Okay, let's just go to a little bit of it here. He asks, what is the secular justification for eating meat? What is the secular, having kind of disposed quite rightly with the religious arguments for eating meat to do with man's dominion over the animals, he says, what's the secular justification for eating meat? And there are really good and well-argued secular justifications. There's a history of secular justification, or reasoning, if you want to avoid the justification word. There are good arguments for eating meat that have been responded to very well by vegetarians and vegans and animal rights activists and philosophers. The one that doesn't work is responding in the way you did Tooltime. I'm sorry, it really doesn't. Because you respond simply by saying, what is the lion's justification for taking down a gazelle? Now you know that's an inadequate answer, I'm sure. On moral grounds, that's the naturalist fallacy, saying that we can take our morality by looking around at nature, and that argument has been bankrupt for well over 100 years. And it also throws the conversation into a different realm, really. It starts inviting us to compare human life and organised human societies with nature red in tooth and claw, which is a very, very different thing. You continue by talking about it's an animal and life feeds on life, the implication being that we are animals also, and as living animals we also feed on life, which of course is true, but it's not quite as simple as that, is it? I don't think. Many of us are vegetarians or vegans, so we do have some choices. Let me just go on to those choices, because you do talk about veganism, and I should say I'm not a vegan, by the way. I'm a vegetarian, but I'm not vegan. Veganism is a luxury, and you try to turn it into a moral decision. I personally would avoid the arguments for that, but yes, there are moral arguments to make. For the rest of human history, you ate meat to survive. Yeah, that's certainly true. Again, it's an appeal to the naturalist fallacy here, and it is something of a luxury, if you can call it that. Just like not using slaves is a luxury, or not demanding that our wives be chattels is something of a luxury. Some societies don't apparently have the option to do that. At least they would say they didn't have the option to do that. Yeah, okay. And then you go on to talk about these moral arguments, as you call them, the decision not to eat meat, not to impose suffering. Actually, is how you move it on. And of course, the justification for eating plants, as you rightly point out, as opposed to animals, is not to do with intelligence. It's not to do with life, because life is too general a term. It's to do with suffering. And again, there's a history of that argument, which I'm sure you're familiar with, from Jeremy Bentham, Peter Singer, Richard Ryder, you name it. There's a history of philosophical discussion about the nature of suffering and finding ways to minimise that. So the idea that suffering is an arbitrary goalpost is somewhat problematic. You'd say intelligence was a goalpost. Possibly, I've never heard intelligence being a goalpost. Otherwise, we would be consuming people who are in persistent vegetative states or people who fell below a certain IQ level. But let's go with you on that one. But suffering, you say, is a goalpost. It's just swapping the same moral reasoning, which, as I say, you say is arbitrary. I don't see anything arbitrary about suffering. If suffering is arbitrary, then I'm sorry, all moral reasoning goes out the window, doesn't it? I would have thought. Yeah, I mean, the reason there's several reasons why I'm disappointed with this video Tooltime. Partly for the reasons that I've said, because it seems like an incredibly weak response to to an incredibly weak original video. You could have taken him down far easier, quite frankly. But also it comes off as a weak ponage, and it invites the kind of responses that I'm looking at here on your video. I've made about 20 vegetarian videos out of the 1500 I've made, or ones which are about that, and I always get responses like the one you've got on here. You make an argument and someone will say something like this, and this is from Andrews, a comment on your video. He quotes you, "What's the secular justification for eating meat? It's fucking tasty," he says. It's fucking tasty. And some git will do exactly the same on this video, I can bet you. Someone will tell me that they're eating a bacon sandwich. Someone will tell me they're eating a burger. It's inviting that kind of stupid reactionary response, quite frankly. And it's disgusting. Yeah, it's just disgusting. I don't mind people having different opinions. But, yeah. I mean, it looks to me like you've just decided to pwn this guy because of... Oh, I don't know. I'll leave it there. Thanks.